Allison for Leading Edge Dog Show Academy, and today, as part of our equipment series, we are going to talk about stripping and carting or raking tools and when and where you might use each one. So first of all, let's get started with kind of the difference between stripping and carting or raking, right? So carting or raking is typically the first step that you would do in stripping. It's, unless you have a terrier, probably the more common thing that you're going to do with a stripping knife. And what you're doing with that is you're going with the grain of the hair, and with your tool on about a 45-degree angle, you're just simply taking it through the dog's coat, taking out, raking out, carting out the dead undercoat, the undercoat that wants to come out of there. Why do we do this? It allows the body hair of the jacket to lay flatter, closer, tighter to the body, and just makes the dog's overall outline look good. It's also a way to thin out areas, and I prefer raking or carting the hair out rather than going backwards with our thinning shears, because once that hair that we've thinned out grows back, it's just going to grow back bushier and bushier. So it's a better way to kind of get that same look. Takes longer, a little bit more precision, but that's what you do. And you can use most of these tools here for raking or carting and stripping. Now, some of them you won't. So when you're stripping, what are you doing? When you're stripping, you're putting your tool into the dog's coat, and with your thumb, you're gripping the hair between the tool and your thumb, and you're actually pulling it out. Again, you're always going to be working in the direction that the hair grows. Now, how do you know if you're doing a good job of stripping your dog out? When you pull that hair out, if you're getting long hairs that extend past the edge of your tool, and some of them will have a little hair root on them, then you know that you are stripping the coat. If when you pull that coat out, it's all as short as a knife or has blunt edges, that either means that your technique is wrong or your tool is a little bit too sharp for the job and you are actually cutting the hair. And in that instance, the hair is not going to have any of the benefits of being stripped. It's going to grow in bushier, the color is going to go off, all of those things, because you might as well be cutting it with a pair of scissors, right? So here's where we have the problem. When you are first learning how to strip your dog, you are probably using a new tool. New stripping tools are sharp, right? We have several different knives here. This is a coarse knife, and we have a finer knife right here. We have a medium knife right here. And it doesn't matter, you can't really make a tool that is dull. So I like to use the analogy of having a cast iron frying pan. Cast iron frying pans are fantastic. They do a great job, but when they're brand new, they must be seasoned to work properly. That's the same with your stripping knives. They need to be seasoned. And just like a cast iron frying pan, the older the pan is, typically, the better it works, right? And same with your stripping tool. So there's many different ways to season a stripping tool. I've been told lots of things, like you would bury it in sand for a month. Some people say you would cut through a brick or even a pumice stone with it. I like to simply take my tool, and I have an old carpet, and I'll run my tool kind of through the carpet like this to kind of dull up those edges. Lots of different ways to do it. But if you really think you're using the right technique, and when you're pulling that hair out, the hair is short, not extending well beyond the knife, and the ends of it look blunt, look cut, most likely you are cutting the hair. So here we have many different shapes and styles of knives. They go from extra fine to coarse, and you would use these on different areas, right? So you would most likely use a coarse knife on your dog's main body or jacket, maybe a medium knife on the shoulder, and maybe a knife with a very fine tooth on the ears, for example, right? So that takes care of stripping knives. Remember that stripping knives can be used for carting or raking, which is the same thing, just people call it two different terms, or stripping the dog out. Now, some other tools that we might use are, this is a rake. So this one is by Blackworks. I really like it. You can see it has this coarse side and then a very coarse side. And same thing, I'm going to use these more on our double-coated breeds to really rake out that undercoat, create the outline that I want. I love the fact that this rake has that double-sided. It's the first rake I've seen that has it, and I think it's pretty genius. I use this all the time. Really great. Again, you never want to go across the grain of the hair because that's when you're going to cut the hair. So always when you can bulk out pants with this, shoulders, the entire body, legs, whatever you want. So this is by Blackworks, but this could be like a Coat King type rake is what I call it. This is a bent tooth staggered rake by Chris Christensen. We call this the T-rake. This is a heavy tool, but it is great for raking out undercoat, more not on a body so much, but more in those big pants of like a Newfie, a Sammy, a St. Bernard, something like that, those double coated breeds. This really, I let the weight do the work for me, and it helps me really rake through those pants and get that excess coat out. One of the first stripping, carding, raking tools we ever had was in fact a slicker brush. You could use this all over your dog's entire body, the pants, the legs, and this would also rake out dead undercoat. But just like anything else, to get to the desired amount, you would start from something wider and coarser and go down to a tool that is finer. So some of the other tools that we might have, this is like a stripping stone, has a comfort grip handle, but it's a very fine kind of pumice stone. This would be getting for very fine work, like maybe around eyes, ears, places like that. This is a great little tool. Another tool that I really like for raking as well as stripping is a plain old pumice stone, right? Kind of hard to screw up when you're using a pumice stone. You can use it in that same way, keeping this angle like at a 45-degree angle to your dog's coat for raking, and then using it with your thumb to pull out coat. Very little chance that you're going to cut the coat with a stone. So some people really like to use the stone because they just feel safer with it. They know they cannot cut the coat. A word about pumice stones is they're cheap. The darker they are, the kind of coarser they are, and the more hair they pick up, which is why I like the darker ones. Now they do crumble and fall apart faster. That's just how it is. The lighter colored stones, the very light gray ones, some are even called groomer stones. They're gonna last you a little bit longer, but for me, they don't have enough grip. They don't get enough of that coat out, which is why I personally like the darker ones. There's other kinds of rakes, etc. Here's one. I've used this one a few times. It doesn't really pull out very much coat. So you have to know what tool you are using when you are using a tool, especially for raking or carding. Once you're raking or carding and you start to, I always start with like the coarsest tool first. So I'd probably start with a slicker to make sure I got like that excess coat out, or depending on the dog, a T-rake. I would then move on to like a Coat King type rake. And then if my dog needed more fine detail work, either a stone or probably a coarse knife. So that's for carding or raking, right? For stripping, when I'm stripping a dog, I'm basically only going to stick to these tools. So my stone or any one of these knives again, but when you're stripping, because you're actually pulling the hair right out, you're not going to start from like a coarser tool and work your way down to a finer tool. You're basically going to use the tool for the part of your dog's body that you're working on, right? So like we said, maybe a coarse knife for the body and a medium knife for a shoulder, and then a fine for maybe the sides of the head, and like an extra fine for ears, right? Or maybe you might just use the stone all over because you want to be safe. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is, why is this chalk sitting here, right? So one of the things when you are stripping, not so much when you're carding or raking, but when you're stripping the coat out, sometimes if you use a coarse chalk and you just kind of lightly tap it into the area that you're stripping, it gives you a little bit more grip on that coat, and it can just make the job a little bit easier when you are stripping the dog out. So that's why we have the chalk here. And of course, I would be remiss to say that everybody probably owns the most foolproof stripping tool that you could ever use, and that's your fingers, right? So long before there were any tools of any kind, people they hand strip their dogs. That the word hand stripping came from using your hands to strip the dog. So basically, your fingers are your first tools. They're the ones that you can't screw up on. And there are some people that truly, truly believe if you want your true terrier color, that you use your fingers, and the fingers are the only way to really make sure that you're not cutting any of the hair whatsoever. So just remember that, if you leave without your tools, you can always get down to using your fingers for that. Although I'm just going to say, personally, I don't recommend it because it really hurts after a while and it's hard to do, but everybody has them. So Whether you're carding or raking, stripping out your dog, learning, you're an expert, you have many tools, or just your fingers, I hope that this helped you learn a little bit more about stripping and what it actually means. Thanks so much. Hi guys, thanks for joining us on another video in our equipment series. Like we said, there is a lot of equipment here that we need to cover. So if we haven't yet hit the piece of equipment that you're yearning to learn about, let us know in the comments below and we will add it to our very next one. As well, don't forget to like and subscribe, because then you won't miss out on a video that maybe you've requested or something that you want to know about. We are always here for you to answer any of your questions about these or any other products, any other thing that you need to know to take great care of your dog, whether you're in the salon, going to a dog show, or just trying to get your dog groomed at home in the easiest and most efficient way possible. So thanks again for joining us in our equipment series.